Hello again, everybody. Today we are going to be looking at some drafts. I've been doing a lot of VOD reviews lately and talking a little bit about draft, but I wanted to go into something specific here because KT recently, in two of their games versus Samsung, one in the regular season right at the very end in week 11, up, as you can see at the top of the screen there, and the second one in one of their playoff games, have been coming up with some fantastic drafts, and I wanted to go over some of the do's and don'ts of what they've been doing, explain some of the logic behind it, and explain how clever some of these drafts are, and also point out some mistakes that Samsung has been making. Okay, Samsung's been obviously they're probably not as good as a team as KT overall, mostly because of Someday, honestly. But KT's been having some fantastic games recently. Been playing really well. They're looking like a really, really hot team to maybe challenge SKT in the next round of the playoffs. But anyway, I think a lot of these games would have been made a lot easier for Samsung or a lot harder for KT, respectively, if the draft hadn't gone the way it had. So, first of all, looking at the bans, mostly they all look like target bans, but actually there is some method to this madness. Okay, so, well, not madness, but it looks overly simple, but in fact, KT does something really clever. Even if this was just the original intention to target ban, the way they take it goes in a totally different direction. So Gangplank away from Cuvée, fine. Malzahar away on red side, this is pretty standard. This is still on patch 6.15. Malzahar's super strong. Everyone's like super afraid of him at this point. Probably won't be the same for the rest of the playoffs. Alistar away from Wraith, denies some engage. Again, just a target ban. And Varus away from Crown. Okay, on blue side against Samsung, it's pretty standard to take that away from Crown. Gnar and Echo away from Someday. So if you notice, that's all of the carry top laners really, apart from like the meta ones, apart from Trundle off of the board. Obviously you have Irelia and Fiora as well, but they're not really played. You've seen some kind of, especially not in Korea, you've seen some forays into that kind of territory, but only with very limited success towards the beginning of the season, and everyone pretty much dropped it after SKT played around with it for a while. So, first pick on blue side, Gragas is up, you take Gragas, okay? He's considered to be the top tier jungler at the moment by pretty much everyone, and Score is having a career season on particularly Gragas and Rek'Sai, but also Elise. First rotation from Samsung. Ashe, okay. Ashe is absolutely fine for your first rotation. This is banned away from Ruler all the time. AD carry first rotation on red side, there's nothing abnormal about that. Normally you'd be picking your jungler here, and this is where it gets a bit weird. So they pick Vladimir, and that's clearly them saying, okay, we really, really value the Vladimir. And this is really important. This pick is what screws up the whole draft for Samsung. We'll get back to it later. The next rotation from KT is the one that I really, really want to focus on, the Shen Trundle. Because as we talked about, all of the top laners, pretty much all the meta top laners, apart from Shen and Trundle, are off the board. So they rotate Shen and Trundle. Especially all of the carry top laners are off of the board, right? So Shen is going to have a good matchup into literally anyone and just out-pressure them with globals, right? What that also means is, because you lock in Trundle and there are no carry top laners left, like the reason we haven't seen so much of Trundle is because there are carry top laners in the meta. So if someone early rotates what's clearly a support Trundle, then, or even a top lane Trundle, then you take a carry top laner, and then you don't have the Trundle being able to just steal all of your stats. But in this game, this isn't the case, right? There are no carry top laners left. Samsung has to pick a tank here. So this rotation is super smart, right? You get guaranteed good matchup for Someday, and he can just out-pressure with global. Shen has no bad matchups left. The Gangplank counter is off, the Gnar counter is off, and they take away the Trundle counter. This would have been the only pick left that Samsung could have taken, and maybe this is what they were kind of bargaining on, or yeah, what they were counting on for their next rotation for their top lane. You say, okay, there are two top laners left, they take one, we take the other, no problem, we're fine with either side of this matchup, we'd rather get the Vladimir. But they forget that Trundle can be a flex, and Trundle goes into support, and this screws them for the rest of the game. Okay, absolutely screws them. So the next rotation from Samsung is also, for me, really questionable. Rek'Sai here is absolutely fine, okay? Rek'Sai is no problem, but the Maokai here, when we look at the next pick as well, which is the Tahm Kench, the Maokai is really weird. So what we talked about before has meant that, like, if we look at this in terms of counter picks, right? Normally on red side, you'd be looking to get counter picks. This is what you play for on the red side in your draft. You look to get a really, really strong top lane or mid lane matchup in your solo lanes, unless there's something really weird that you're hiding in your jungle or your AD carry support role, like some crazy new pick, like when you first bust out Taric onto the scene, or the first time you play Hecarim, right? You leave that until last on red side. And you just pick safe stuff everywhere else. But they picked their AD carry first, so they no longer have an AD carry counter pick, and it was really predictable. Okay, they picked the Vladimir. You no longer have a mid lane counter pick. Rek'Sai into Gragas, not a counter pick at all. Gragas, as we've already talked about, is considered top tier jungler right here. Maokai into Shen. Again, KT have basically ensured that there is no counter pick here. So Samsung has gone from being able to be on red side and like they should have the upper hand in this draft in terms of counter picks. They now have 0 lane counter picks left. They can't pick their AD carry. Counterpick their AD carry, sorry. They can't counterpick their mid lane because they picked it first, and they can't counterpick their top lane because there are no good top lane matchups left because KT took them away. So they finish off by picking Tahm Kench. This, in the support role, is the one pick they have the ability to counterpick, right? Now, by the time they get to their second round, where they pick Rek'Sai and Maokai, they already know that Trundle is going support, right? You know that Trundle's support because there's a Shen top laner, so you know they have a melee matchup support. They're also fairly likely to pick Sivir or potentially Jhin, right? Jhin is the other one that they could have picked in this situation. But why go for a Tahm Kench here? Why go for a support which cannot punish this matchup? This is the only thing, as we talked about before, that they are able to counterpick, the only lane, and they choose to pick a melee matchup into a melee matchup instead of picking something like, I don't know, a Karma to, you know, be a really good lane bully and speed up the Vladimir, or a Bard to get more engaged and to synergize really well with the Ashe. They also pick the Maokai in the second round, and if you think you're going to pick Tahm in the last round, like, it doesn't seem like they're thinking ahead here, is what I'm trying to get at. Because if you pick Tahm in the last round, Tahm's also a flex pick, and he's also actually really good into Shen because you have some of this global pressure here, right? So why not pick the Tahm fourth instead of the Maokai and leave it as a flex? And then at least you have some option to counterpick, right? You have some option to counterpick the support with a double range matchup. So that's most of what went wrong and what went well. The only thing we have to talk about really is what they should have done with this pick up here, this Vladimir pick, right? Okay, so what should they have done here? When you see all of these carry top laners taken off the board, and there are only 2 left, and one of them has a great matchup into the other one, you pick the Trundle, okay? You pick Ashe Trundle here. That's absolutely fine. The problem with that, on the other hand, is that if there's no Trundle support here, and you're trying to pick a Vladimir, then KT has the option to play Taric, which will come into play later, as you'll see if I do the next video on the second game of their playoff series, but that's not important for now. They have the option to play Taric into Vladimir. So if you do this, you get a top lane matchup, which is great for Kuve. You get Trundle into Shen, which is fantastic, and you know you don't have to play a Maokai top anymore, or a Tahm Kench top, which is your other option. But you don't have the ability to play Vladimir. Is this a problem? I don't think so. Why? Because we're on red side. Victor is still up. Yes, Fly plays a fantastic Victor, but if he takes away your Victor, Crown has Cassiopeia left. I don't know why we haven't seen any of Crown's Cassiopeia, but this is actually a fine comp to play Cassiopeia into. Yes, Gragas is annoying as hell to play Cassiopeia into with the body slam flash, but it is manageable in the lane, okay? And you don't end up essentially having no top laner. I mean, they don't have no top laner, but they lose any ability to counterpick this top lane, right? So that's what I would have liked to see them do there. Really, really clever draft from KT, basically predicting almost the whole thing based on just these first 2 picks here. We're not predicting it necessarily, but counting out all the options for them to be able to counterplay them at all in terms of the draft. There is no good option here for Samsung after their first rotation. So I mean, I feel like they are just placing too high a priority on this Vladimir. I guess they think they have a fantastic Vladimir on their hands and that Crown is amazing on it, or that Vladimir is really broken. Maybe their scrim results go that way. But you have to remember that Crown actually has other champions that he's fantastic on. Like his Victor is one of the best in the league. His Cassiopeia is also one of the best in the league. So really questionable draft from Samsung here. Really nicely played by KT. Right, that is all for that video. Kept it relatively short. I think I got everything I wanted to get into there. So without further ado, let's move on to the next one. We'll be looking at one of their playoff games, which a similar thing happened in terms of sealing out one position, one role with the draft to make the rest of the draft suck, or to make your draft just uncounterable, right? So thanks for watching this video. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed it. Do like and subscribe if you did. Much love. Peace.